Nyumba Upendo, Milwaukee. That means I love you. Welcome to the Nyumba Upendo Show, the House of Love on WNOV 860 AM, 106.5 FM. I am your host, Kweku Dr.Alisia.
And I am Dr.Alisia Moutry, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm feeling the love in the room.
Oh, man, this is a beautiful day. You know, man, when we got Ryan out in Byron, baby, man, what can we do?
I know.
Yes, sir.
Hey, listen, this is one of those days where it's like, I wanted to come on a little earlier because like I could be a little silly. I could talk because today is one of those shows that's heavy on my heart. And so we used to talk about like, who do you want to dedicate the show to? And even how I start off the show is a tribute to a movie that I saw. It's called Good Morning Vietnam. And it was this man that was in Vietnam. You know, the morale was low and they didn't know what to do. So he became a radio host and he would talk to the people and he would always start off by saying, "Good morning, Vietnam." And that man's name was Robin Williams.
Yes. Yeah.
Robin Williams died by suicide.
He did.
You know, we look inside of our world and we say, man, this is a world with a lot of pain. And suicide is one of those topics people don't really want to talk about. You say that somebody probably done turned off the tuner already. So I'm gonna go over here and hear something different. But what I like about September 10th specifically is this is what we call World Suicide Prevention Day. So that gives us a chance to legitimately talk about it, but talk about it in a way where it's not scary, where we can talk about it proactively. And we say, just because we don't discuss it doesn't mean it's not going to happen.
And because it's a serious topic, I'm excited that we had opportunity to get permission from my mother to be able to speak. And in addition to that, prayers.
See, listen, and this is the beautiful thing. I'm so glad. This is why you need another person by your side, because sometimes you get caught up. I went all off the script.
That's all right.
And she was like, hey, we cannot start the show without our PMPs. And how important is it today
For sure.
for that?
Exactly.
And
right.
so we have our beautiful mother to give us permission to speak to the people. And she's given us prayers. And in those prayers, what we're talking about is that everybody can hear this topic, they can receive this topic, and that we can learn and that we can grow from it. I was talking to my mother earlier, and we was like, suicide sometimes is a cry for help. And with it being a cry for help, that means there's some preventative things we can do. Now, we're not saying everybody who does it wants to be saved, because some people want to do it, and that's why they do it. But we say, well, what got them to the point that got there? And what are some of the things that we might have been able to do to give them a little hope? So when I started to think about this whole topic, it's like, okay, well, why do we really need to discuss this? So let me ask you a question. And this is a legitimate question, Alicia. What's one of the top 3 stories you'll see on the news every night?
The top 3 what?
One of the top 3 stories you'll hear on the news. If you watch Channel 4,
absolutely. I mean, we're always going to hear something about homicide, suicide. Now, homicide.
Yeah,
homicide.
I was going to say, we don't
homicide,
hear
right?
nothing
None
about
about suicide is homicide. You're right.
So think about this.
And crime, right?
In 2022 in Milwaukee, there was 227 homicides. In 2023, there was 263 homicides, right?
Right.
You said, oh man, that's almost one every day. That's why it's on the news. You're hearing about it. You're seeing about it. But then when you look at suicides, how often do you hear about suicide on the news?
Yeah, you don't. You really don't.
Maybe if it's a Robin Williams, maybe if it's a celebrity figure.
Right.
But in 2022,
same year,
924 suicides.
Wow.
2023, 923. So when you're looking at that, you're looking at 3 times the rate. So you said, why do we put this homicide out there, but not the suicide? Sometimes you hear about suicide when there's a murder triangle, you know, that love triangle, murder, suicide.
It's homicide first, and then they went ahead and took their
and then
lives.
they say, oh, I did it. And that's when we'll hear about it. But the reason why I said, why don't we talk about it, is because it's hard to hear. And it's something that's unexplainable. We can't talk about. That's why September 10th becomes a day that we can talk about it. But you say, well, think about it. If we have that many in Wisconsin is a smaller state, just think about nationally. In 2023, 49,316 Americans took their own lives. That's the 11th leading cause of death. So when you think about all of the leading causes of death, you're like, wow. But this is where it gets sad, because between the ages of 10 to 34, it's the second leading cause of death. And from 2018 to 2021, 37% increase. Now that's 10 to 34, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old. individuals who haven't even gone through life yet, but that means the trauma and the hurt was there so much that they had to do. As a psychologist, the hardest thing you have to do is when you deal with parents and grief. The hardest one I ever had was a 6-year-old died by suicide. And he said they have no concept of death. They do. They don't always understand the finality, but they understand, hey, if I want to stop breathing, I know what I can do. But they don't really have the cognitive ability and level to really understand everything. But in this world, they says, and specifically for our Black kids, because remember, we said this is something that we don't do. That used to be the thing. Between the ages of 5 and 12, Black children are 2 times more likely than white children to die by suicide. So when we start saying, why do we got to talk about, when we just look at these numbers, they are alarming. Suicide has gone up 32% from 2000 to 2020. So you think about like just the start of the new millennium, like, oh, it's a new fresh start. We're going to do things greater. Suicide has gone up. And within our political society, we talk about our military veterans. We always have these days. We salute you, veterans. We love you, veterans. We want to give you this honor, this praise. 20 veterans die by suicide every day. 20. That's more. When we add up the number of veterans that have died post-release from the military, post-department, is there. And what is one of the things that we hear when we attach to those soldiers? PTSD. It's this post-traumatic stress disorder. So what we start seeing is these things don't just come out of nowhere. It's like it's something that's happened. So Byron, you're a little young, but man, when I was about to go to the military, I was 17, but you got to be 18 to go in. My mother needed to sign the paper. She's like, I ain't signing that paper. I like, Mom, we ain't been in war since Vietnam. That's in the 70s. It's 1990. Well, what happened in January 91? That's where we do the first Gulf strike. And my cousin that just joined the Army, he was like, don't come in. Don't come in. And what he was saying is, what we seeing over here ain't nothing nobody should be seeing. And I want to take this time to give love to him. His name was Donovan Freeman. And Donovan Freeman is no longer with us. He didn't die by suicide, but you could tell the toils of all of the things that went on. So even when we look at suicide, sometimes people don't die by suicide, but it's an attrition of all of the things that lead some people to suicide. And when we look at these numbers, you say, well, did this person die by suicide? That's always like if somebody died, you say, how did they die? But then when we hear drug overdose or we hear car accident, you said, I wonder. So when we say these numbers are even higher. So who's one of the most confident coaches that's always on the news and he's talking about his sons, how he loves his son?
Brian.
Well, Brian is one. No, that's a good one.
Player.
I was thinking of Deion Sanders.
Okay. Oh, yes.
Deion Sanders, not short on confidence.
No.
Not short on confidence. Well, people don't know he tried to commit suicide. He tried to die by suicide. He ran his car off a cliff, 30 feet, but came out uninjured. Now, how can a man who describes himself as I'm him? He said, I've been him my whole life. He said, you didn't break me. You didn't make me, so you can't break me. That's one of his famous sayings. But this man tried to die by suicide. You know why? Because that's when he went through his first divorce and he thought he was going to lose his children. So that means all of the accolades, all of the money, the Super Bowl rings, the World Series appearances. When it came to him, he said, this is my world. And if this is being taken from me. So what I say is to say this, I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how powerful you are. You look at politicians. We've had one in our own Milwaukee area die by suicide. We look on the national level. It was this one guy, he was in Alabama named Bubba Copeland. They found him cross-dressing. Now he in the deep South.
Yeah.
Pastor. Died by suicide. So you see what's coming out. But there was a lady, I think her name was, I can't remember her name. Look her name up, a pageant lady. I think it was like Chelsea Crest or something. She was a beautiful black woman. One like a pageant lady, jumped off Manhattan High Tower to her death in 2022, 23. So what I'm saying is all of this is like, there's no layer of protection from who you may be.
There isn't. No, but what it made me think about prior to the show, I just did a little research as well. And so I looked up the Department of Public Instruction. So I'm going down my lane of just even the schooling component, right? So
Now, this back with the babies.
It's with the babies, but it's gonna tie back to what you were just talking about. So it talks about the general Wisconsin trend in the state around. So the Department of Public, they actually do surveys to students. And so what they did is it was a statewide survey that they did in 2021, and they reported that 50 to 52% of the students that were in the schools suffer with anxiety. They suffer with depression. They suffer with self-harm, and then they have about 18% have attempted suicide. So when you started talking a little bit about like the Deion Sanders, you talking about the beauty pageant, right away that went into me, one, anxiety. I'm anticipating something that I have no control over, and I don't know what to do. I have a personal friend that you know of that committed suicide, and it all had to do with.
And we say, die by suicide.
You're right.
Because and just for the people who are listening,
please.
Because when you say committed, they say he committed homicide. He committed this, and
there
was a criminal connotation that went with that the families didn't want that stigma attached to their loved ones who had died, because they said they were going through something. So this wasn't a crime. This was a cry out. And so they removed from a political correct term, not to say committed, but to say died by suicide. So that's a beautiful.
No, I love that language shift. So thank you for that. So I personally have someone that died by suicide. And I can, if I think back about the situation, it was all about those things that I talked about, anxiety, because monies were spent that he didn't know how to get the monies back. In a lot of debt, owed a lot of people. And then from that anxiety, then what does that lead to? Oh my God, I'm depressed because I don't know how to get out of this ugly situation. So I'm bringing back up this survey that the Department of Public Instruction actually conducts, is because, again, we see that someone died by suicide, but sometimes we got to look back and look at like, what were some of the causes? What led up to this? It's like that helplessness. What are some of those things that you think?
You know what? And you just hit the nail on the head to how we transition from this. Because you say, okay, well, we understand the numbers, but now what are the symptoms? What are the signs? What are the things that we can know? And there was a study, and we talked about it on the show before, called Adverse Childhood Experiences. And when people take this test, it's a 10-question test, but they want to ask you, what was your home like growing up? Was there physical abuse? Was it sexual abuse? Was there emotional abuse and neglect? Did somebody have mental health issues? Was somebody in jail? Did you see domestic violence? So what they were saying is the more adverse childhood experiences you went through, the more likelihood you were going to have trouble growing up in life.
So you're saying if you ask that question and someone says yes to that, that's an additional component that makes their life a little more traumatic.
So much different. So we said out of those 10 questions.
Okay.
So this is a study done by the CDC, the Center for Disease Prevention and Control. And so when you start to look at this, Falidi and Ananda, if anybody is looking for the researchers, they started to say, and Kaiser Permanente was a part of it. They said anybody who scored 4 out of 10 had these significant issues growing up, because the reason why they developed the schedule was it wasn't about suicide or doing anything. They had a struggle. They was doing this thing for weight loss for white women who were overweight. And these women were overweight and they couldn't figure out why they couldn't lose the weight. They were studying. So as they started delving deeper and asking questions, they said, wow, we see some commonalities. When you were younger, you had this. And so what did eating become? It became a common trigger to be able to help. Because I have anxiety, I eat. Because I'm depressed, I eat. And because it's comfort foods, I eat. Or if I was raped, maybe if I'm bigger, I won't be as attractive for the people to come. It was all different types of things that was coming on. But this was done in California with very wealthy white women. So we started saying, hey, for our community, we just did the ACEs inside the home. What about the struggles we have when we talk about systemic racism? So when we started to look around our community and say, Jermaine, if you hear sirens and you in your car and you ain't driving dirty, what happened to your belly?
Man, nothing. Like if I'm not driving dirty and I'm clean, I just pull over and.
Yeah, I get anxiety.
Oh,
when
you do?
Yeah. Even if I'm not doing it, because I understand like what's been happening.
Oh,
and the
yeah,
thing.
yeah, well,
So
yeah,
so I'm not scared for me doing something wrong.
oh yeah, yeah,
It's because I don't know what's on the other side.
Exactly.
Is he gonna have a good day or
Yeah.
he gonna have a bad day? And because of their track record, I don't know. So that increases a level of anxiety.
Yeah.
We go into the schools, and if you ever go into a school, I tell you, all you got to do is to go to North Avenue. North Avenue tells the story of Milwaukee. So if I go all the way down to the lakefront, it's so beautiful. You see Bradford Beach, you see UWM, you see these homes. But go a little further west. Now, once you get to 11th Street, 12th Street, you're like, oh, is this the same city? Now you look at the schools that's there. Now you go up a little bit more to 60th, and you say, okay, it look a little different. Now you go all the way up to 180th at North Avenue. Now you're getting close to Brookfield. You see a whole different set of circumstances. And so what I'm saying is this: with these ACEs, they only did what's in the home. They didn't look in the community. And when you see how you're abusing your community in the world that you lived in, so anybody who's from a marginalized system. So if you say, hey, I'm not a Christian, if you're not heterosexual, if you're not a male, if you're not an able body, if you're not this, you say, I'm taking different hits from society. And now these extra hits is even more. And what they learned in is the studies, they said, remember, we said if you got four or more, well, what happens is the earlier these insults happen, it changes your brain chemistry. So now what's going on? Now I have neurological development. I got problems. Not only do I got neurological problems, I started to see things differently. And now as I see things differently, I go into these places where in my life where I say every time I go up this ladder, something is not right. And you say, well, what else is not right? Well, if I'm having cognitive delay, that hurts me in school. If I can't do well in school, now I'm either getting detentions or I'm getting kicked out. So now I got a trajectory towards prison. I got a trajectory towards early death. I got a trajectory towards prison. I got something that's not
so
good.
let me go on. So speaking of that, and so I think we're going to at some point have to find those questions. It's just to, I'm sure there's some listening audience members that
if
are
you
there.
go to ACEs too high, those 10 questions will pop up for you.
We're going to find them for them. But what I wanted to just come back to is that you keep talking a little bit about when folks take the ACE test and they get four or above, they would say yes to four above these questions. There's some data in that talks about they die on an early age of 20 years sooner. Yep. They 4.5 times likely to become depressed. They are 7 times more likely to develop alcoholism. They are 10 times more likely for drug abuse. And then 2 more. They are 12 times more likely to commit suicide. And then the final one is that they're 32 times more likely to have learning and behavior problems.
And if you just go down a little bit more, you don't have to look at it with that, but they're more likely to be fired from their job, more likely to have multiple relationships, more likely to be able to be involved in risque behavior that leads to all of those things. And to your end point where you say death rate 20 years earlier. And these are things where we say, well, sometimes if I'm going through all this, well, I'm like, hell, why am I going through this if tomorrow is going to be worse than today and today was the worst day of my life? Now suicide becomes an option. So when we start seeing what are the things, we say, well, what? Oh, I know we're coming up on a break, Jermaine. So we're gonna wrap this down. And callers, I know this is a hard topic, but please, we invite you to come in and talk with us at 444-5253. 444-5250. You can the lines will be open. But as we start to talk about these things, we say, well, if we understand some of these symptoms, we understand some of these issues right here. Well, what do we do in the beginning? Because that's what we want to talk about. This is World Suicide Prevention Day. So we want to say we don't want this to happen because oftentimes people say, oh, it happened. And now I'm going to be an ally. Now I'm going to be a champion, but they've already lost a loved one. What we want to do is save a life today. You're listening to the House of Love, better known as Nyumba Upendo, WNOV 860 AM, 106.5 FM. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to the Nyumba Upendo Show, the House of Love on WNOV 860 AM, 106.5 FM. And if you're just joining in, we're talking about World Suicide Prevention Day. So don't be afraid of it. This is a topic that we want to talk about. We kind of talked about the numbers and some of the things that go through there. But now when we talk about prevention, one of the things, put your wrists up. B, get this. When we look at the colors for the day, it's purple and teal. And I don't want to act like I got this. I got this from outreach. I went in today just to do a checkup and everything like that. I had this cough and it was good. They was like, no, you're good. It's just going on. So I felt good when I came out and I saw this sign and it says, where there is health, there is hope. And it was an Arabian proverb. And I was like, that's the thing what you were talking about, Alicia, because when you get depressed, when you get this, the number one reason for suicide is hopelessness. That's the thing we said. Tomorrow is going to be worse than today, and today was horrible. I don't want to do this. I've lost hope. And when you see a people lose hope, that's that's the scary part. So that's what constant anxiety, constant depression, constant inflicts and insults by families, by people come. Even when we said Deion Sanders, the thought of losing my family just makes me go like out of my mind for a second. And we always say, like, a layman's definition of suicide is that it's a permanent solution for a temporary problem.
Can you repeat that one? I like that.
It's a permanent solution for a temporary problem. So specifically, like in our field, when we work with people, that's always the one we want to make sure it's like, hey, whatever problem you're going through, if you believe that you can work through this, we got a chance, we got hope. So whenever a person leaves my office as a psychologist, I have to do a suicidal check. And people say, do you ask them? Yes, I will ask people, because that's one of the things we do to make it like less stigmatized. And if I say, hey, Alicia, you want to kill yourself? You say, no, I want to kill myself. But then 3 weeks later, you say, no, not really. Now, see, that's the red flag right there, because once you establish norm, and so I'm telling you to say this, you don't have to be a psychologist to ask somebody if you love them, if you're thinking about hurting yourself. If you want to die, and you say, well, I don't know how to say that. That's just so hard to come out and say. Well, then what we do is this. I'm not always looking to see if you want to kill yourself today, but I want to see what's your thoughts, because sometimes people have suicidal ideation. And what this ideation is, I'm probably not going to kill myself, but I think about it. What would life be without me? What would life be if I'm not here? How would these people exist? Where would it go for there? Don't nobody need me. Like if you ever see that story, It's a Wonderful Life, and the guy was like, nobody needs me. And he jumps into the lake, and he finds out, man, my life mattered to so many people. Right. So what I look and say is, do this person have any thoughts? Like, are they the ideation? Are you thinking about it? And then let's say they say, yeah, I think about it, but I wouldn't do it. But let's say some people say, I got a plan. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump out the window. I have a gun. I have pills. Now I'm like, oh, this is a problem. Now we got to get people involved. We got to do something. But if a person has plan, but they don't have access to it. So let's say somebody comes up with an elaborate scheme, how they're going to get an AK-47 and they're going to jump out of building and then they're going to blow their head off. And I said, you got an AK-47? No. And I'm like, okay, now you might still do it, but you ain't going to do it that way. So now I got to go back down and say, but what do you have access to that could be a secondary plot? And so when people have these things, we want to ask, are you thinking of hurting yourself? No. Do you have thoughts? Do you have a plan? Do you have the means? And when we say this on a regular basis, you want the answers to be no, 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 and no. But when people can't say that, you say, okay, well, what can we do? Or let's say you're a person listening, you say, oh, these are still hard questions for me to ask. What I started to do is I look for future orientation. And by future orientation, that's just saying, hey, Alicia, what you going to do tomorrow? Now, if you can't give me a full idea of what you're going to do tomorrow, my red flags, those antennas go up. If you can tell me what you're going to do in a week from now, well, you know what, man, we got the family reunion coming up, man. You know what? Hey, we got the Super Bowl tickets in February. I can't wait for that. I'm like, oh, they're oriented to the future, meaning they got something that's there. But if you ask somebody, hey, what you going to do tomorrow? Man, I don't know what I'm going to do tonight. And not like plans of kicking it, but just like you hear a melancholy, you hear a sadness. And so you say, well, what are some of the signs that you can look for? So for a person who's not a psychologist, Alicia, but you said, man, this is touching my life in many ways. What are some of the things that you say I look for when I see a person? I say something doesn't seem quite right.
I look for change in behaviors. So I'm thinking about the person that I personally know of that committed suicide.
Died by suicide.
Excuse me. Thank you for the language change. Not committed suicide, but died by suicide. Thank you for that. I think about how the person used to be at home all the time, but then all of a sudden they were out a lot later.
Changes and differences.
The way they clothes, this person used to be a sharp dresser. Boy, I'm gonna tell you, wouldn't leave the house without the clothes right, without the hair clean. Then all of a sudden you see him just looking kind of like really like raggedy in the face, and the clothes are disheveled.
Yeah.
And you kind of go like, so and again, that doesn't always mean that is someone that's ready to die by something, but just the red flag starts going like, I wonder what's going on. Or the person used to love to spend a lot of time with the children and family, but then all of a sudden now they want to be in the house in a dark room by themselves all the time. And so looking for those real drastic changes is something that you want to pay attention to.
And I love the last part, what you said. You said in a room by themselves. See, isolation is one of those big telltale signs, because if I'm around people who love me, hey, I see you changing. You're not shaving. You're not doing this. Now I see it. I want to do this. But if don't nobody see me, they don't know. And you think about how busy lives are, where you can go across and not see a person for a while. So once we start seeing this, what are some things we look for? Well, this is the thing. The number one demographic in America that kills themselves is, guess what it is? White men over 65. And people say, white men over 65. Why? Well, we know that men die by suicide more than women, 4 times as many times. But women attempt 12 times in some studies. They say more than men, because men use more lethal acids, meaning when we want to do it, we do it. And so when we look at the number of firearms that's in the homes and things of that nature, and they say people don't kill people. Guns don't kill people. People do kill people. Well, we want the guns outside of those who are mentally ill. Everybody agrees to that. But I said, well, if you got a gun in the home and you got alcohol in the home, that's problematic, because alcohol can give you what we call a substance-induced psychosis. When we see a person drink, you talk about changes and differences. You can see a person do a clear metamorphosis if they're under the ingredients and some type of intoxicant. It could be alcohol, illicit drugs, prescription drugs. You can just say something ain't right.
And let's not sleep on those prescriptive drugs too, because that's sometimes people function only with that.
It's a thing in our community. We say half the things we call drugs ain't drugs, and half of the stuff we don't call drugs are really drugs. Right. Sugar is a drug. People don't think about it, but you could give your kids sugar at 10 p.m. at night. You'll be like, hell, because we understand the changes.
Right. Or don't drink caffeine. Like, I'm not drinking caffeine after 8 o'clock because it is a drug as well.
And so you think about those things, and I don't want to go too far off the realm with this, but there are medications that people have classified them as drugs and dangerous, where really, if they're used appropriately, I'm talking about certain psychedelic, they have shown to have clinical results to be helpful. And so oftentimes the things that can be helpful, because they've been miscategorized or misused in some parts of culture, they've been eliminated from the shelf. But we give our children that's on ADHD, and I don't want people to think that this is a hate on medication, but what we do have to recognize that most medications for ADHD are methylphenidate. And what is this? These are Schedule II drugs, the same level as cocaine, which used to be a legal drug to give. So you say, yeah, I'm sure it helps, but what are all some of the other common effects and whatnot? But as we go back to those symptoms and change, if a person is not taking the medication, let's say these are one of the things where we say medication can have some powerful positive changes, but a person say, oh, I'm feeling good, I don't need my medication anymore, because medication don't make me feel good because of side effects, so I take off of it. If I'm not on my medication, that's a red flag to me, because I'm saying now you're just like the alcohol can change your behavior, not taking the medication can change your behavior, and generally it can become more reckless, it can become more dangerous. So for all my people who take depression medication, there's a black box warning. And most people say, well, what's a black box warning? And a lot of times they're not even informed of this. But sometimes, a person can be so depressed that they don't even have the energy to die, to attempt suicide. I don't even got time to think of a plan. I don't got the energy. But what the medication can do sometimes is make you feel just good enough. Well, now I can create a plan. Now I can think about it. So you say, oh, my person feeling good. They better. They looking like they self. Danger. Because now the medication hasn't gotten a chance to do everything that it needs to do, and it just got there. So what I'm saying is this: the symptoms is any person, anytime, any day. And that's why we want to talk about this on a regular. How are you feeling? I honestly believe, like, when you talk about like families at the dinner table, that's what saved lives in the beginning, because I know what's going on in your life. I'm seeing you every day. Not eating is one of those symptoms. So if we eat every day at the table and you're not eating, that's immediate. What's going on? You ain't ate the last 2 days. Now, sometimes you can have a stomach ache, but you ain't had a stomach ache 3 days.
Right.
So now when we start thinking about all of these things, we say, well, what can we do for prevention? Now,
Well, I had one more though.
Go
Actually,
ahead.
I was just I'm thinking about this. I have a particular person in my mind. I'm even thinking about the spending habits. You know, I'm
Come on.
absolutely know that. Okay, maybe I was a saver. Now all of a sudden, I'm spending all my money. Like I'm not even trying to go back to what you were talking about, planning for that future. I'm not even thinking about that anymore. That's a red sign for some help.
And so you say just spending, but then let's say this person gambles, and you say, they kind of gamble. But now they live in that pot of water me. Now they living on DraftKings.
You may be going down the lane of some folks on the listening audience right now.
No. But then also you look at hypersexual behavior, because what is that? When you talk about like sexual release orgasm, what is that? It's a high. So once you're chasing it, but if you're chasing it from person to person, it can become dangerous. These are signs. You talk about hyperspending, but this is another one. Hyper work. What you mean hyper work? When you see a person who just can't stop there, keep going, that means something is going on that's not healthy, because we have a balance. That's why we always talk about self-care on this show. It's like, hey, you're going. But sometimes people go, so they don't have to stop and confront what's really going on. And because they're doing good deeds, this person's always in the community. This person is overachieving at work. It looks good because it's masking the society, is masking the symptoms, is masking the hurt. We talk about Robin Williams. We talk about these great comedians who we love. We're like, how Don Cornelius, Soul Train, died by suicide. Like, you got everything. We look at you and we see something beautiful, but it's so many things that can be hurt. So what we do, we want to talk about it. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, because that was a really good point that you just brought up, because you said we look at the outer person and then we wonder, how is it that person could do that? I never thought. So my question is that whole masking thing, is that something that people do to avoid being recognized as somebody that's interested in the possibility of dying by suicide?
Well, think about it here. If anybody ever suffer from any level of mental illness, specifically where they had a significant breakdown, where it caused harm in the family, where it caused hospitalization, or it caused any other major issue, that person is forever marked. Nobody wants that mark. That's like the scarlet letter. Who wants to have that letter? So you know what we do? Ain't nobody gonna know I went through this.
Got it.
So we learn to put on masks for self-protection, or for even our people. If something happened in the house, they say, hey, don't y'all tell nobody about what happened right here.
Right.
Okay, we're gonna handle this in. We're gonna lock this person up for a minute. When they out, they can come back out, because we understand the stigma that comes with it. But think about our society in general. How many of us smile when we don't really want to smile? And it's not that we're being fake. It's just like what we're taught. Your visceral response if somebody say, hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing good. Hey, you're
and
not
how are
doing
you?
good.
Right.
But am I going to tell you that?
Right.
One, they say, don't tell me because I don't care. But two, what can I do?
Right.
But for the people who do care, that's why you have to let your people know, I care. So when you tell me something, don't tell me, hey, I care about you, and then I tell you I'm struggling with something, but now you ain't got time, because that's going to shut me up again. So now when you say, how you doing? I'm doing good.
Right.
Because you taught me to be fake with you, because you show me you really don't care, or you don't have the time. You might care, but you don't have the time, and it's not as important. So when we start talking about World Prevention Day, it's things like this on the radio that we talk about. It's all of the programs that's going over. They have programs that they call like QPR. It's called Question, Persuade, and Refer. So I learned how to question the people who I love. So if I'm questioning you, but not in I'm not a
like
detective.
an interrogator.
I'm not interrogating you. Thank you. But it's like, because I care. But then I want to persuade you, hey, let's think about some other options. Maybe we can go to counseling. Maybe there's some things we can do for therapy that's outside of the box. We can go for a walk. We can go to the library.
Yeah, no, but that questioning is a really good one that I'm thinking about as well. So you talk about, again, isolation is a dangerous thing, because you don't have somebody to dispute those thoughts that are in your mind when you're by yourself. But maybe you have that conversation, how you doing? And the body language says one thing, but your mouth says another. That's when I can kind of put, tell me how you, have you ever had somebody say, how you really really doing?
Yeah.
Just that second question, just doing it one more time, asking one more time may help. But then also, if in fact like things come up, like, I never get anything right, I'm always this, then that's when I can come back with that question to say, well, what happened last time when you were when you got this award and you did this, or asking about their children. Just questions again, I believe, can help someone to come out of thinking in this negative mindset.
And I love what you said, because when you say, if I ask the questions and you say, oh, I didn't ask the question, but they didn't gave me something I can't answer. Well, that's why we want to have these things like this. That's why we say we want to refer. So you said, man, you don't know what to do. If somebody broke into your house and you got a phone, what number you calling?
911.
We calling 911. Why? Because it's been ingrained.
Yes.
But you know that there's a national number for people to call if they're going through emotional distress, and it's confidential. That number is 988.
988.
So just to call 988, you can call and talk with somebody about what's going on.
Is that 24 hours?
That's 24/7, 365. But they also have another number, 741-741 text. If you text
you
that
said
number,
it way too fast.
741 741. So you going through some stuff at home, you text home, HOME. Somebody's going to respond. How you doing? Is this for you or is this for somebody else? So let's say you don't really want to talk to somebody. You don't want them to have your name, but you just need somebody so you're not alone. It's one of those things that you can have. And I want to make sure I get my glasses so I read this next number off properly. We talked about 988.
Yes.
But there's a number for the Trevor Project. Trevor Project is for those who are in the LGBTQ community, because sometimes they are, especially within the schools, they're bullied to the point where they want to think about it, where it's a special number specifically targeted for people who deal with those issues. It's 1-866-488-7386. And when I put all of this on social media today, we're going to put all of those numbers down. Again, that's 1-866-488-7346. And then the National Alliance of Mental Illness has a national number, 1-800-950-6264. And if you say, I can't remember all that, just remember NAMI, NAMI, and put that in Google and it'll pop up. But that's 1-800-950-6264. So when I started to think about all of these things, we say, well, I don't want to just talk about suicide. Well, we want to be proactive. So now the things are, what do we do that's just fun? What are the things that we do just to make life worth living? And the thing is, I love traditions. I love to be able to do things where you say, well, what did we do? So one of the things, and Alicia, you know this, on my house, every Friday night, we do movie night. Yeah. So now if somebody don't want to come out for movie night, I'm like, what's going on? Because we usually let one person pick their movies for the night. So everybody get a chance to say, I want to see what I want to see. But also by the movies they select, they're talking to me. I want to hear what's on your iPod. I want to hear what's on your playlist. I want to hear what songs are you listening to. What mode are you in? So you got a child, and now that child is the happiest in the world, but now they moping. And the significant other who they used to talk to, they're no longer talking to. You see how we started to connect the dots?
Exactly.
Hey, what's going on with such and such? I don't see y'all together no more. There's nothing worse in young people than what we call unrequited love. Unrequited love is when I give love, but that love is not returned. So I tell parents, I said, they say they too young to fall in love. Nope. You're never too young to fall in love. You're too young to fall out of love. That's where the heartbreak comes, because everybody wants love, can accept it. But once you've been fooled, once you've been betrayed, once you've been let down, once you've been hurt, that's what your mind can't. And if suicide is what? A permanent solution for a temporary problem, that first heartbreak can be seen overwhelmingly. That's when you hear people say, oh, it's more fish in the sea. And like it seems so easy to get over. But at that age, it can be one of those things that's just very difficult. So we say, but doing those positive things is what allowed me to be able to even go down that rabbit hole, because I saw how you were happy. I saw the songs you were listening to. I saw the movies you were watching. You talk about our children. What those grades looking like? Yeah. Are they going down because the subject is too hard? Or is it because of some outside factors that then came in? They're being bullied at school. They don't feel love, or they just feeling sad in themselves. So we want to look at all of those things. But what is something that you can say, hey, you know what? In my life, this is what we did on the positive front. When we started talking about, we didn't even know we were preventing suicide, but we were creating community and love, which in essence is the best prevention.
Well, I take it back and thinking about family as well is limiting that whole isolation thing. 'Cause we were talking about that earlier. And so what I thought about is at one point in time having teenage boys, they wanted to have dinner in their rooms or they wanted to
Yeah.
not come to the dinner table. But what we did is everybody knew that we were having dinner at a particular time.
Yeah.
And some people say that's kind of corny, but it is making sure that
And
we
that's the kind of corny
all
that saves
have
lives.
it is, but making sure that there's a dinner time and that we know we all sit at the table together. And even if you have friends, then we know what time it is, we're all going to sit together because again, that's one way to create custom and tradition, and then that's an opportunity for some conversations to start talking because we didn't have also phones at the table either, at that time.
Oh, but social media, that's a whole nother point with how that comes down. But as we talk about positive, proactive,
Right.
as a parent, the best thing you can do is when your child is little, they used to say, we're going to go on a play date. And you try to cultivate friendships with children who you say, these are the children that fit our morals, our values, our ethics. And you know what? We know instinctively that having just one friend can be the difference between a person dying by suicide and not. In fact, they say that if you have at least one friend, like some people have tons of friends or positive associates, but if you just have one friend, that reduces the risk of suicide exponentially in a person's life. So now we start to think about how do we cultivate friendships? How do we make sure that people are involved in sporting events? You say, well, why are you always putting your children in these sports? Because it creates community.
And not just the kids, but what about the adults as well?
No, and that's the point. So as we go up, we have to ask ourselves, what am I involved in? And now this becomes the hard part for as you get older because you start to lose people. The people who you had, they're not around. I'm at the age now where I'm losing friends. For me to lose a friend is shocking, but not uncommon. Where we be like, oh, she died. Oh, he died. Where it's like, wow, we're getting to that age where it comes, it's still like a little bit too much of a shock. But as you start to get older, like I look at my wife's grandmother, she's 102. She looks around and she said, like my world, from the people I knew, especially that raised me, that loved me, they're gone. And so now she lives for her daughter, her granddaughters, her great grandchildren, and everything. But she said at her age, if she wake up, it's a blessing, it's a gift. But she still wants to get up because she know what it is to other people. What about the people who don't want to get up? And so since we don't know who they are, I want everybody to reach out to somebody. If we said one friend can be something positive, make sure you reach out. I got a friend named John Odom. He texts me every Wednesday. He said, man, I'm just doing a checkup on you. How you doing? And I can look forward to that call every Wednesday. Now, when I don't get that call, I'm going to hit John and say, hey, what's up? You ain't hit me. Sometimes I'll try to beat him to the punch and say, how you doing today? But I'm just saying, having that person who you can say, I can reach out to and say, Jermaine Rideout Sr., I love you. That makes a difference. And that's the truth.
Right.
And so when we do things like that, we talk about how can we be a blessing. So when we talk about how do we flip the negative to positive on this tough topic, by making sure we do things proactively. Hey, listen, we're going to come back on Nyumba Upendo. We're talking about that dreaded S word that we're going to turn into self-care so we don't have to talk about suicide. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to the Nyumba Upendo Show on WNOV 860 AM 106.5 FM. This is Kweku Dr.Alisia, your host. Dr.Alisia Moutry just had to leave the building, but she wanted to send her love to everybody. You know, as we talk about this show with World Prevention Suicide Day, we started off by saying, man, these numbers are staggering. And because we don't hear about suicides on the news like we hear about homicides, we got to recognize that they're happening at 3 times the rate, and there is an increase in intake in suicide. And also not only with suicide, but suicide behavior, suicide ideation, suicide attempts. So what we want to do is say, okay, well, we understand the issue. Well, what do we do? Well, the first thing what we got to do is we got to try to reduce the trauma that leads to the anxiety, that leads to the depression, that leads to the frustration. We can't stop every suicide, but we can stop some. And since we don't know which ones are the ones we can stop, we want to make sure that we attempt to show everybody who might be going through these situations a level of love, a level of understanding. One thing we didn't get a chance to really talk about is what happens after it happens to the families. Do we understand that if somebody in your family dies by suicide, it's more likely that somebody else will? Now, they don't know if it's genetic or if it's just something that they've seen from a social standpoint where they understand this is an option. But oftentimes you will see suicides in families. So if there's a history of suicide, this is a real reason to talk about it. When we start talking about the people who are here, make sure you find some people who you can talk about these problems with. And the thing is what we tried to make known from everybody is that anybody and everybody can be a candidate for suicide. So it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you soft. What we want to do is to make sure that you talk with somebody before it is too late. As we started to talk about the prevention, on this day especially, there's going to be programs this week and for this month actually that's talking about mental wellness, about things we can do. Make sure you become a part of those programs, learn about them, study, think about the things you can do on your own. And if you are feeling that way, we at WNOV want to tell you that we love you. We want to let you know that there can be hope, but the hope is not being by yourself. The hope is by finding people who love you and care about you. And if you don't think anybody loves you or care about you, we do. We've given you numbers, 988 to call, 741-741 to text. But sometimes we need to hear it from a voice that we hear on a regular basis. And one of the reasons that I love about WNOV being the voice of the community is that we always try to give hope. We always try to give information. We try to give the things that the people need so they can be most informed, so we can be our best selves. And when you are your best self, that's when the world works better. But if you're not at your best self, that means we all hurt. But we also have a responsibility to help each other. And what I want you thinking about these next couple of days, these next couple of moments, have I ever thought about this? And if I had, how did I get out of it? So if I get there, I know easier how to get there. Do I know other people who are there and may be embarrassed and kind of afraid or shy to talk about it? Maybe they need somebody to talk to. Let me go and talk with them and let them know it's okay, that I'm a safe voice, that I'm a safe landing spot, that I'm an ear for them. And if you are somebody who has someone and you lost them to suicide, we want to offer you our deepest condolences, because we know that grief never leaves, even though you learn to adjust to a new normal. We want to let you know that you are loved. We want to let you know that if there's something that you need, there's places you can call, people you can go. But also think about that circle of people who took that loss just as much as you and come together. Sometimes that's one of those elephants in the rooms that nobody talks about again, and they all need to talk about. So if you are a survivor and your family is still hurting, your family hasn't talked about it, and you said, well, we don't know how to do it, there's people in the area that can come and can help you mediate if you need. Again, you can call 1-800 numbers. You can call 988. You can get in contact with NAMI. You can contact the Trevor Project. And if you just do a Google search on mental health, on help with suicide prevention, there's a ton of information that's going to come up. Make sure you take advantage of all of these things. We got to go into Al Sharpton now, but the listening audience, beloved chosen ones, just know we love you and we're praying for you. You're listening to Nyumba Upendo on WNOV